Captain James Reed stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder, Earth's most advanced exploration vessel, staring at the swirling violet energy barrier that had confounded humanity for decades. The Galactic Wall, as it had come to be known, stretched across the entirety of what humans had designated Sector 47, an impenetrable boundary preventing further exploration into the unknown reaches of space. Status report. Reed commanded, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. Lisa Miller, the ship's chief science officer, looked up from her station. The wall's energy signature remains consistent, Captain, same as it has for the 30 years we've been studying it. Reed nodded grimly. Humanity had encountered the wall shortly after developing faster-than-light travel. It seemed to mark the boundary of what the galaxy's elder species had deemed safe space for younger civilizations. No human probe had ever penetrated it. No communication had ever passed through it. It stood as a silent guardian, or prison wall, keeping humanity contained. "They think we're not ready," Reed muttered. "Sir," his first officer, Thomas Hayes, inquired, "whoever built this wall? The precursors, the ancients, whatever you want to call them. They decided humanity wasn't ready to see what's beyond." Reed's eyes narrowed. "I think they're wrong. The mission was clear: test the experimental phase shift drive that the United Earth Sciences Division had been developing in secret for years. If successful, the Pathfinder would become the first vessel in human history to breach the wall." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Marcus Wright monitored the phase shift drive's power levels. The technology was revolutionary, designed to briefly shift the Pathfinder into a different dimensional phase, theoretically allowing it to pass through the wall as if it weren't there. "Power levels at 85% and climbing," Marcus reported over the comm. "Phase shift coils are charging nicely." Reed acknowledged with a terse, "Understood." He turned to his navigation officer. "Jack, plot a direct course to the wall's thinnest point." The young navigator's fingers danced across the controls. "Course plotted, sir. ETA 3 minutes." The bridge fell silent as the Pathfinder approached the massive energy barrier. For generations, humanity had stared at this wall of light, wondering what secrets lay beyond. They had sent messages, probes, and signals. All had failed. The elder species they'd encountered in their exploration had been tight-lipped, merely warning that the wall was not to be breached. "Phase shift drive at 100%, Marcus reported, his voice tight with tension. "We're ready, Captain." Reed took a deep breath. This moment would either mark humanity's greatest achievement or their most spectacular failure. Either way, they would make history. "All hands, secure for phase shift," he ordered. "Engage in 3, 2, 1. Marcus activated the drive. The Pathfinder shuddered as reality itself seemed to bend around it. The violet barrier loomed ahead, filling the view screen with its ethereal glow. As the ship made contact with the wall, alarms blared across the bridge. The vessel groaned under impossible stresses as it existed partially in one phase of reality and partially in another. "Hull integrity holding," shouted Hayes above the cacophony. "Power fluctuations within acceptable parameters." Reed gripped his command chair as the ship pushed against the barrier. For a moment, it seemed the wall would hold, that humanity's ambition had once again been thwarted by forces beyond their understanding. Then, with a silent flash that momentarily blinded everyone on the bridge, the Pathfinder broke through. "Phase shift complete," Marcus reported, disbelief evident in his voice. "Captain, we're through the wall." As the view screen cleared, the bridge crew stared in stunned silence at what lay beyond. They had done it. Humanity had broken through the galactic wall, and what they saw would change everything. The universe beyond the wall was not empty as some had theorized. It was alive with stars, planets, and activity. The sensors of the Pathfinder immediately detected thousands of ships moving in complex patterns throughout the space before them, a cosmic dance of civilizations that humanity had never known existed. "My God," whispered Lisa, her eyes wide as she studied the incoming data. "Captain, I'm detecting artificial structures on a scale we've never encountered before. There's an entire network of something connecting the star systems ahead." Reed stood slowly, his expression a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Are we being scanned?" "Constantly," confirmed Hayes, monitoring the defense systems. "Multiple energy signatures, but nothing that registers as immediately hostile." The communications officer, Ellie Parker, suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's directed at us specifically." "Put it through," Reed ordered. The main view screen shifted to display a being unlike any humanity had encountered. It appeared vaguely humanoid, but with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors with its movements. Its eyes, 4 of them arranged in a diamond pattern, regarded the human crew with unmistakable intelligence. "Greetings, breakers of the boundary," the being spoke, its voice translated through the ship's advanced systems. "I am Sentinel Moran of the Galactic Confederation. Your presence here was unexpected." Reed stepped forward. "I am Captain James Reed of the Earth vessel Pathfinder. We come in peace and in the spirit of exploration." The being, Moran, seemed to consider this. "No species has breached the boundary wall without Confederation approval in over 10,000 cycles. The fact that you have done so is concerning." "We meant no offense," Reed replied carefully. "Humanity sought only to understand what lay beyond our known space. Understanding often comes with consequences, Captain Reed." Moran's eyes narrowed slightly. "Your vessel will be escorted to the nearest Confederation outpost for evaluation. Please do not deviate from the course that will be provided." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. "Captain," Hayes began, "I'm detecting 4 vessels approaching. Their energy signatures are significant." 4 sleek ships materialized around the Pathfinder, their hulls gleaming with a metal unknown to human science. They took up positions surrounding the Earth vessel, clearly an escort or a prison guard. "Options?" Reed asked quietly. Marcus spoke up from engineering. "The phase shift drive needs at least 12 hours to recharge, Captain. We couldn't run even if we wanted to." Reed nodded slowly. "Then we follow their lead. For now." He turned to Lisa. "I want everything documented. Every reading, every scan, every observation. This is first contact with an entirely new galactic community." As the Pathfinder followed its escorts deeper into unknown space, the crew worked feverishly to process the flood of new information. The space beyond the wall teemed with life and technology far beyond human understanding. Massive structures that could only be described as space habitats dotted the void between stars. Energy signatures indicated faster-than-light travel on a scale that made Earth's achievements seem primitive by comparison. "Captain," Lisa called out, her voice tense with discovery. "These civilization markers, they're consistent with species at least Class II on the Kardashev scale. Some might even be approaching Class IV." Reed absorbed this information grimly. Humanity had barely achieved Class I status. They were technological infants compared to what existed beyond the wall. As they approached what appeared to be a massive space station, a structure so large it dwarfed Earth's moon, Reed made a decision. "Send a tight beam transmission back to Earth," he ordered Ellie. "Everything we've discovered so far. If we don't make it back, humanity needs to know what's out here." The message was sent, racing back toward the wall and the human civilization that lay beyond, ignorant of the vastness of the galactic community they had just stumbled into. The Pathfinder docked at the colossal station, and Reed prepared to meet the representatives of the Galactic Confederation face to face. Humanity's first true steps into a much larger universe had begun. The Confederation outpost was a marvel of engineering that made Earth's most advanced space stations look like primitive constructions. Vast internal spaces housed diverse ecosystems, while gravity generators created a comfortable environment for dozens of different species. "Reed, along with Lisa, Hayes, and Ellie, were escorted through luminescent corridors by two tall, silent guards with metallic exoskeletons. The humans tried to maintain their composure despite the overwhelming alienness surrounding them. "Remember," Reed cautioned his team quietly, "we represent all of humanity now. Every word, every action matters." They were led into a circular chamber where 7 beings sat in a semicircle on elevated platforms. Sentinel Mron stood to one side, while the central figure, a being with crystalline features that caught and refracted light, addressed them. "I am Arbiter Vex of the Confederation Council," the crystalline being stated, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "You stand before us as representatives of a species that has violated one of our most sacred boundaries." Reed stepped forward. "With respect, Arbiter, humanity was unaware of any prohibition against crossing the wall. We encountered no warnings, no messages explaining its purpose. The boundary wall itself is the warning, Captain Reed," replied another counselor, this one appearing almost gaseous in form. "It was established to contain developing species until they have reached sufficient maturity to join the galactic community. And who decides when a species is mature enough?" Lisa asked boldly. The counselors exchanged glances that seemed to communicate volumes without words. "The wall itself decides," Moran explained. "It is a semi-sentient construct designed to become permeable only when a species has evolved beyond certain tendencies." "What tendencies?" Reed pressed. "Aggression, territoriality, resource hoarding, biological superiority complexes." The crystalline arbiter's mental voice was cool and clinical. "Your historical records, which we have accessed from your ship's database, indicate that humanity still exhibits all these traits." Hayes stiffened beside Reed. "You accessed our databases without permission. The moment you breached the wall, you submitted to Confederation jurisdiction," replied a counselor with multiple appendages and eyes that seemed to observe multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Your permission was irrelevant." Reed fought to keep his composure. "Then why didn't the wall stop us? If it's designed to contain immature species, why did our technology allow us to pass through?" The council chamber fell silent. The counselors communicated among themselves in a manner the humans couldn't perceive. Finally, Arbiter Vex spoke again. "That is precisely the question that concerns us, Captain. The wall has contained thousands of developing species for millions of years. None has ever breached it before their time. Yet humanity, barely a spacefaring civilization by our standards, has done the impossible." Lisa stepped forward. "Perhaps your wall has a flaw, or perhaps your criteria for judging species maturity is flawed." A murmur rippled through the council, but Reed continued before they could respond. "We came seeking knowledge, not conflict." His exploration itself considered a sign of immaturity by the Confederation. "It is not exploration that concerns us, but the method," replied the gaseous counselor. "Your phase-shift technology. It should not be possible for a species at your development stage." Arbiter Vex leaned forward. "We have reached a decision. Humanity will be evaluated comprehensively before we determine whether to reseal the wall with your species behind it, or to grant provisional acceptance into the Confederation." "And what does this evaluation entail?" Reed asked cautiously. "Your vessel will be assigned a Confederation observer. You will be permitted to explore designated regions beyond the wall while we assess your species' reactions and decisions," Moran explained. "Consider it a test, Captain. One that will determine humanity's future among the stars." As they were escorted back to the Pathfinder, Hayes whispered to Reed, "They're treating us like lab rats." Reed nodded grimly. "Or children. Either way, we got a chance to prove them wrong." Back aboard their ship, they found a new addition waiting. A tall, slender being with silver skin who introduced himself as Observer Thal. "I will be monitoring your crew's actions and decisions," Thal explained dispassionately. "Be advised that any attempt to return through the wall without authorization will result in immediate sanction against your entire species. As the Pathfinder detached from the station with its new passenger, Reed gathered his senior officers. "This isn't just an exploration mission anymore," he told them gravely. "It's become a trial, and all of humanity is in the dock." 2 weeks into their evaluation, the Pathfinder received coordinates from observer Thal for their next destination, an uncharted system near the edge of what the Confederation designated as Safe Zone Alpha. These coordinates will provide an adequate test of your species' protocols when encountering potentially dangerous unknowns, Thal explained with clinical detachment. Reed had grown accustomed to the observer's presence, though the crew remained uncomfortable around the silver-skinned being who watched their every move with unblinking eyes. "What exactly are we looking for in this system?" Reed asked. "That would defeat the purpose of the evaluation, Captain," Thal replied. "The Confederation wishes to observe how humanity approaches the unknown without prior guidance." As the Pathfinder dropped out of FTL at the designated coordinates, sensors immediately detected something unusual, a massive object in stable orbit around a red dwarf star. "Captain," Lisa called from her station, "I'm reading a structure approximately 15 kilometers in length. It appears artificial, but it doesn't match any Confederation design patterns in the database they provided us." Thal moved to examine her readings, showing the first sign of genuine interest since coming aboard. "Interesting. This structure is not in our records. So this isn't part of your test?" Hayes asked skeptically. "No," Thal admitted. "This is unexpected." Reed ordered the ship closer, maintaining a cautious distance as they conducted detailed scans of the massive derelict. It appeared to be an ancient vessel of some kind, its hull pitted and scarred by millennia of exposure to the harsh void. "I'm detecting minimal power signatures," Marcus reported from engineering. "Whatever it is, it's mostly dormant, but not completely dead." Reed glanced at Thal, who seemed unusually silent. "Any Confederation protocols we should follow here?" "You should proceed according to your own established protocols," Thal replied, though Reed detected a note of uncertainty in the observer's voice. "This will be informative." Reed nodded. "Prepare an exploration team. Standard first contact and unknown vessel protocols. Hayes, you'll lead the team. Lisa, I want you there to gather scientific data. Marcus will need an engineer to assess any technology." And he hesitated. "Observer Thal, would you care to join them?" The silver being seemed surprised by the invitation. "That would be acceptable. I will observe directly." The team boarded one of the Pathfinder's shuttles and approached the derelict. Up close, the ancient vessel was even more imposing, a relic of technology that appeared both primitive and advanced simultaneously. The data Marcus extracted from the Forerunner vessel was incomplete but revelatory. As the exploration team rushed back to the Pathfinder with their findings, the atmosphere was electric with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. In the ship's conference room, Marcus displayed the translated information for Captain Reed and the senior staff. Observer Thal stood silently in the corner, silver features unreadable. "According to these records," Marcus explained, gesturing to the holographic display, "the boundary walls weren't created to protect developing species or to contain them until they were mature enough. They were designed as containment protocols for something else entirely." Lisa continued, her voice tense with the implications of their discovery. "The Forerunners created the walls to section off the galaxy into manageable regions after encountering something they called the collapse. Some kind of cascading wave of, well, the best translation seems to be reality destabilization." "And the current Confederation?" Reed asked, glancing at Thal. "If these records are accurate," Hayes replied, "the Confederation evolved from a security force the Forerunners established to maintain the walls. Over millions of years, as the Forerunners themselves disappeared, the original purpose was forgotten or deliberately obscured." Thal finally spoke, voice uncharacteristically subdued. "This information contradicts everything in our historical archives. It cannot be correct. The data contains command protocols for the walls, Marcus added, including shutdown sequences and modification parameters. Reed turned to Thal. We need to bring this information to your Confederation Council immediately. That would be problematic, Thal responded after a moment's hesitation. Information of this nature could destabilize the established order. The Council might suppress it rather than acknowledge a truth that contradicts thousands of years of Confederation doctrine. Then what do you suggest? Reed challenged. This information changes everything about how we understand the walls and why humanity was contained. Thal seemed to come to a decision. I will continue my evaluation mission as assigned, but I cannot prevent you from acting on this information as you see fit. It was as close to approval as they were likely to get from the observer. Reed ordered the Pathfinder to return to the Confederation outpost, where they requested an emergency audience with the Council. As expected, they were initially denied, until Reed transmitted a small portion of their findings directly to Arbiter Vex. Within hours, they were standing before the full Council again, this time with Observer Thal standing awkwardly between the humans and the counselors. You claim to have discovered a Forerunner vessel, Arbiter Vex stated, crystalline features refracting light in patterns that seem to indicate agitation, and that this vessel contained information contradicting the established purpose of the boundary walls. Not claiming, Arbiter. We have, Reed replied firmly. We've brought the relevant data for your examination. Lisa stepped forward, activating a holographic display showing the star map they'd discovered. The walls were never meant to contain developing species. They were emergency measures implemented by the Forerunners to contain something they feared, something they called the collapse. The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices and mental projections as the counselors reacted to the information. This is heresy, declared the gaseous counselor. The walls have maintained galactic order for millions of cycles. Their purpose is clear. Is it? Reed challenged. Or is that simply the story that's been passed down through generations? A convenient narrative that gives the Confederation authority over lesser species. Sentinel Mron moved forward. Even if this information were true, and I'm not conceding that it is, revealing it now could cause widespread panic throughout Confederation space. Perhaps, Reed acknowledged, or perhaps it will lead to a more honest relationship between the species of this galaxy. The walls don't determine which species are mature enough for galactic society. They never did. Then how do you explain humanity's unique ability to breach the wall? Arbiter Vex demanded. Marcus cleared his throat. The Forerunner records indicate that the walls were designed with, well, backdoors. Security overrides that could be triggered by specific dimensional phase alignments. Our phase shift drive accidentally matched one of these patterns. It wasn't that humanity was special, Lisa added. It was blind luck. We stumbled onto an override sequence the Forerunners built into the system. The Council fell silent, processing this information. Finally, the multi-appendage counselor spoke. If these records are authentic, they will require significant reassessment of Confederation principles. And what of humanity? Reed asked. Will you still attempt to force us back behind the wall? Arbiter Vex's crystalline features shifted in what might have been the equivalent of a sigh. That decision must be postponed until we have verified your findings. In the meantime, your vessel will remain here. As they were escorted from the chamber, Hayes muttered to Reed, They're going to try to suppress this. Most likely, Reed agreed quietly. Which is why I had Ellie transmit everything we found to Earth before we docked. The revelation had changed the game entirely. Now, humanity wasn't just fighting for its place among the stars. It was potentially reshaping the understanding of galactic history itself. 3 days after presenting their findings to the Council, the Pathfinder's crew remained under a polite but unmistakable form of detention at the Confederation outpost. Observer Thal had disappeared, presumably recalled for debriefing, and the Council had gone silent on the matter of the Forerunner vessel. Reed was in his temporary quarters when the station's alarms began blaring. Moments later, Hayes burst through the door. Captain, something's happening. The whole station's going into emergency protocols. They rushed to the command center, where chaos reigned. Confederation officials were shouting orders as display screens showed a strange phenomenon unfolding at the edge of the system. "What's going on?" Reed demanded of a harried-looking moron who was coordinating the response. "We're detecting a collapse event," Moran replied tersely. "First one in recorded history. The Council is unprepared." "A collapse event? You mean like what the Forerunners were containing with the walls?" Lisa asked, having joined them along with Marcus and Ellie. "Precisely that," came a familiar voice. Observer Thal approached, looking significantly less composed than usual. "Your discovery forced the Council to investigate the other walls. When they accessed the control systems using the Forerunner protocols you provided, they inadvertently triggered a cascade failure in Sector 89. The main view screen showed a distant region of space where normal space appeared to be folding in on itself. Stars were disappearing, replaced by a growing void that defied the laws of physics as humans understood them. The wall in that sector has completely failed," Thal continued, "and the effect is spreading. The Confederation evacuation protocol is already in effect, but millions will be lost before it's complete." Reed studied the data flowing across nearby terminals. "This is similar to what the Forerunner records described, but not identical. It's almost as if the walls themselves were causing it." Marcus finished. "Captain, look at these energy readings. The wall's collapse isn't just allowing this phenomenon to spread, it's generating it." The Forerunners didn't build the walls to contain a natural phenomenon, Lisa realized, her eyes widening. They built them to contain the consequences of their own technology. The walls themselves are both the problem and the solution. Reed turned to Thal. "We need access to our ship. Now." "The Council has ordered all vessels grounded," Moran objected. "Your Council is evacuating," Reed pointed out sharply. "And we might have a solution. The phase shift technology that allowed us to breach the wall might be able to stabilize it." After a moment's hesitation, Thal nodded. "I will authorize it, but I'm coming with you." Within the hour, the Pathfinder was racing toward the failing wall in Sector 89, its engines straining at maximum output. In engineering, Marcus was working feverishly to modify the phase shift drive based on the Forerunner specifications they'd discovered. "The phase shift can be tuned to match the frequency of the wall's quantum matrix," he explained over the ship-wide comm. "If we can generate a resonance field at the failure point, we might be able to reinforce the boundary long enough for the Confederation to implement a more permanent solution." "Might?" Hayes questioned. "It's theoretical," Marcus admitted, "but it's more than the Confederation has right now." As they approached the edge of the spreading void, the ship's sensors began to malfunction. Reality itself seemed to warp around them, causing disorientation among the crew. "We're getting close to the failure point," Lisa reported, fighting nausea as space-time fluctuated around them. "The laws of physics are becoming optional, near the boundary." Reed gripped his command chair. "Marcus, status on the modified drive." "Ready as it'll ever be, Captain. But we'll need to get much closer to the breach for this to work." Reed nodded grimly. "Take us in, Helm. Minimum safe distance." The Pathfinder edged closer to the cosmic wound, where stars and planets were being unmade before their eyes. Through the view screen, they could see the ghostly remnants of the wall, a once impenetrable barrier now dissolving into nothingness. "Activating phase shift in modified configuration," Marcus announced, his voice tight with concentration. "Everyone hold on. This is going to get rough." The drive engaged, and the ship shuddered violently as energy poured from its modified emitters. A beam of scintillating light lanced out toward the failing wall, connecting with the fragmenting energy barrier. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the dissolution began to slow. The wall's energy pattern stabilized, then began to regenerate. "It's working," Lisa exclaimed, monitoring the readings. "The wall is rebuilding itself." But their success was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the ship as the phase shift drive began to overload. "Captain, we can't maintain this output," Marcus warned. "The drive is going critical." Reed made an instant decision. "Can we set the drive to continue functioning on automatic?" Marcus hesitated. "Yes, but—" "Do it," Reed ordered. "Prepare to abandon ship." As the crew rushed to the escape pods, Reed remained on the bridge with Hayes, ensuring the autopilot was properly programmed to maintain the phase shift beam. "That should do it," Hayes confirmed. "But Captain, without the ship to protect it, the drive will burn out within hours." "Hours might be enough," Reed replied, checking the readings one last time. "The wall is already 40% regenerated. With luck, the Confederation can take over before our drive fails completely." They were the last to board the final escape pod, launching away from the Pathfinder as the vessel continued its lonely vigil at the edge of oblivion, pouring its life force into healing the cosmic wound. As their pod drifted away, they watched their ship growing smaller against the backdrop of the partially restored wall, humanity's offering to a galaxy it had underestimated them. The Confederation rescue vessel picked up the Pathfinder's escape pods 3 hours after evacuation. By then, the wall in Sector 89 had stabilized at approximately 78% integrity, enough to halt the collapse event, though a permanent solution would still be needed. From the observation deck of the massive Confederation cruiser, Reed and his crew watched as distant ships swarmed around the remains of the wall, reinforcing it with technology derived from the Forerunner specifications humanity had provided. "Your vessel's sacrifice will not be forgotten, Captain Reed," Arbiter Vex stated, joining the humans at the viewport. The crystalline being's features seemed less rigid than before, almost humbled. "The Confederation owes humanity a debt that cannot easily be repaid." "The Pathfinder did what it was designed to do," Reed replied quietly. "Find paths for humanity to follow." "And what a path it has opened." Vex gestured toward the stars beyond. "The Council has been in emergency session since the crisis began. Many long-held beliefs are being reconsidered." Sentinel Mron approached, accompanied by Observer Thal. "The final report on the collapse event has been completed," Mron announced. "Your science officer's hypothesis was correct. The walls themselves were generating a form of reality distortion, gradually building up over millions of years until failure became inevitable. The Forerunners created a temporary solution to a problem they themselves caused," Thal added, "then disappeared, leaving later generations to maintain a system they didn't fully understand." Lisa nodded. "They likely hoped to find a permanent solution, but failed before they could implement it. And now that burden falls to us," Vex acknowledged. "All of us, including humanity." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Does this mean the Council has reached a decision regarding Earth's status?" "Indeed." Vex's crystalline features caught the light in what might have been the equivalent of a smile. "The boundary wall containing Earth's region of space will be permanently deactivated. Humanity will be granted full membership in the Confederation, with all rights and responsibilities that entails." Hayes couldn't hide his surprise. "That's not what we expected. The crisis has forced us to reassess many things, Commander Hayes," Moran explained, "including our evaluation criteria for developing species. Humanity's response to the collapse event demonstrated qualities the Confederation values: innovation, selflessness, and adaptation. Besides," Thal added with what sounded almost like humor, "your species has already proven it can breach our walls at will. Better to have you as allies than potential adversaries." Reed couldn't help but smile at that. A wise decision. "There is more," Vex continued. "The Council has created a new division within the Confederation, the Forerunner Research Initiative. We would like to offer Earth the opportunity to lead this effort." "Lead it?" Reed questioned. "Why us?" "Because you found what we never thought to look for," Vex replied simply. "Your perspective is valuable." 2 weeks later, the Pathfinder's crew stood on the bridge of their new vessel, the Confederation ship Horizon, reassigned and recommissioned under Joint Human Confederation Command. Twice the size of their original ship and incorporating the most advanced technology the Confederation could provide, it represented the beginning of a new era. Reed addressed his expanded crew, now including members of 3 different Confederation species alongside the human contingent. "Our mission remains exploration," he told them, "but with a new purpose. We seek not just discovery for its own sake, but solutions to challenges that affect all sentient life. The walls that once divided us are coming down, not just physically, but metaphorically as well." As the Horizon prepared to depart, Reed received one final transmission from Arbiter Vex. The Forerunners had a saying. The Arbiter's message began. Translated roughly, it means, "The walls we build become the prisons we inhabit." For too long, the Confederation lived within walls of its own making, walls of doctrine, tradition, and assumed superiority. It took humanity's unexpected arrival to begin dismantling those walls. Reed watched as the massive starship accelerated away from the Confederation outpost, setting course for the nearest region where another wall stood, not to maintain it, but to dismantle it safely and open new paths of connection between formerly isolated regions of the galaxy. The galactic wall had fallen to humanity's ship, but what they had found beyond was not conquest or domination, but partnership. The new frontier that awaited wasn't just uncharted space, but a new understanding between species across the cosmic tapestry. As Earth received the news of their new status and role in the galactic community, humanity looked to the stars with fresh eyes, no longer as distant points of light beyond an impenetrable barrier, but as beacons of possibility and connection. The Galactic Confederation Council unanimously voted to establish Earth as the headquarters for the newly formed Wall Transition Authority, the organization tasked with safely dismantling the remaining walls while preventing further collapse events. Representatives from hundreds of species journeyed to Earth, transforming the once isolated planet into a cosmic crossroads of culture, technology, and knowledge. Universities across Earth established science departments, while Confederation academies opened their doors to human students eager to learn about civilizations that had evolved over millions of years. The exchange of ideas flowed freely in both directions. Humanity's innovative thinking and tendency to question established paradigms brought fresh perspectives to ancient Confederation problems. 6 months after the Sector 89 incident, the Horizon returned to Earth orbit for a brief resupply mission. Captain Reed stood in the Oval Office, briefing Earth's leaders on their findings. "We've successfully deactivated 3 more walls," he reported, each containing civilizations that had developed in isolation, just as we did. "The galaxy is becoming more connected each day." "And the collapse phenomenon?" asked the Secretary General. "Under control for now," Reed replied. "Marcus's modifications to the phase shift technology have been implemented fleet-wide. We can stabilize any wall long enough to safely dismantle it." As Reed departed the meeting, he found Lisa waiting for him in the corridor. "They've finished the memorial," she said quietly. Together, they visited the newly erected monument honoring the original Pathfinder, a gleaming sculpture in Washington, D.C., depicting the ship breaking through a stylized wall, its wake creating a path for others to follow. The simple inscription read, "They opened the way." Later that evening, as the Horizon prepared to depart Earth once more, Reed stood on the bridge looking at the view screen that showed his home planet slowly receding as they accelerated outward. "New course laid in, Captain," reported Jack from the navigation station. "The Andromeda Bridge awaits." Reed nodded, a slight smile playing at his lips. The Confederation's ancient records had revealed the existence of even greater projects than the walls, bridges between galaxies that had fallen into disrepair over millions of years. Humanity's next great challenge would be to help restore these cosmic connections. "Engage," Reed ordered, his voice steady with purpose. As the Horizon leaped into faster-than-light travel, Reed reflected on how quickly everything had changed. In less than a year, humanity had gone from a species contained behind an alien barrier to becoming essential partners in reshaping the very structure of galactic civilization. The stars were no longer distant or unreachable. The walls had fallen, and humanity had found not conquest, but community, not isolation, but interconnection. The frontier that awaited wasn't just of space, but of possibility. And they were just getting started.